morning, everyone. It's Anika and Gavino coming to you today to talk about how we met, and then to talk about some of our tips and guide for interracial relationship, for interracial marriage. Before we get started today, on Clair Em, we always like to give a little piece of inspiration or motivation to kind of let you know what has motivated us through the week. So, Gavino, this week, what do you think? What's motivated you?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Anika, my beautiful wife. This week's motivation, I would have to say, as you guys know, if you've been following along with Clair Em, recently finished our rental home to put it up for sale, and so now I've had a bunch of free time. And what motivates me typically on a day-to-day basis is my family. Mostly my family, my immediate family, and my family in general. My wife. I always want to show her how awesome I am, as if, putting the whole house together in itself is not enough, but I just want to show her how awesome I am. And I want to wow her all the time. So she's been wanting some shutters lately for the house, and she's actually been wanting these shutters for a very long time, and I just hadn't had the time. And she's wanted me to wrap this column that we have in the front of our house with cedar. So I did. I gave him the wow factor, and she was wowed. So my motivation is typically my family. It's what gets me going. It's what motivates me. It's what fuels me. It's what lights the fire under me. But this week in general was my wife.
So on that
you were my motivation.
On that same token, then those shutters, I wish you all could see them, because those shutters are awesome, and the column is awesome. And like Gavino said, I have been wanting them for forever, and so my inspiration this week, yesterday morning, we got up early in the morning and stained the shutters. And so we were out there burning up, but the neighbors were coming by and saying, "Hey, looks nice, did a good job." And so that's been my inspiration this week as well, to get up yesterday and say, okay, I'm gonna get out there. He was awesome enough to put this together, so then I can get out there and help. So I appreciate you, and I thank you.
No doubt.
Before we get started, Gavino had the idea, with just everything that's going on out in the world. We lost a superhero just here recently on Friday, with Chadwick Boseman. And so we wanted to just give a brief kind of moment of silence out of respect, to honor him.
So coming out of this moment of silence, to honor this superhero. He was a superhero in movies, but he was also a real life superhero to many African American boys and men,
And
girls.
And
because there's not too many African American superheroes on the big screen. So I know this is gonna greatly affect a lot of young African American boys and young African American girls as well as their parents, because we don't have that many, big name, big screen players that we can really like, wow, yeah, look at him, and it's kind of, it's sad, it's very sad, but in a sense, it's, he's no more suffering. He had cancer. There's no more suffering for the young man. He died at a young age, so I'm sure he would want us to remember him and his name as a positive influence in this world. And that's if you watch his videos, if you watch some of his interviews, some of his speeches, very intelligent man. So may you rest in peace, and thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for shining the light, and that you can be a superhero. So back to the topic at hand, interracial marriage, interracial relationships, dating outside of your race, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's so, I don't know, it's almost like a taboo, if you will. depending on who you speak with. For me, I mean.
So why don't you tell them how we met? So before we even get to tell you how we became an interracial relationship, we should probably start with how it was.
All right. You're right. That's why we're here in the first place. You're right. Okay, so how we met, I mean, she might have a different perspective on it, but I think we're pretty much aligned. So I was going to barber college, and, my barber instructor at the time, which is my mother-in-law now, real cool lady, and very strict, but real cool. And we hit it off. Her and I, we had a very good relationship. So one day, I'm there, waiting for clients to come in so that I can practice my cutting skills on them, which I'm on point all the time. But anyways, so I'm sitting there, and I see these two young ladies, these two beautiful young ladies walk in, and I'm like, wow, who are these girls? Because it wasn't too many girls that walked in there. It's mostly men, or older women with their kids, bringing their sons, whatnot. So I see these two young women walk in there, pretty girls, very pretty, both of them. So I'm like, man, these are some pretty girls, right? So they asked for my instructor by name. I was like, I didn't put two and two together. As cool as we were, I really didn't get all into my instructor's family relations or whatnot. So later on, maybe about 30 minutes or so passes, my instructor comes out from the break room. She comes out and I'm like, hey, can I talk to you? She's like, I'm busy, boy, what do you need? I says, there was these two young ladies that came up here looking for you around lunchtime. She was like, really? I was like, yeah. She's like, oh. She's like, them are my baby girls. Those are my daughters. I said, really? I said, okay, well, all right. Me, I've always been one that if I see something I like, whether it be, my wife, a car, a house, a tool, I usually put my mind forth and I go after it. And in this instance, it was no difference. It was no different. I saw two beautiful women. Now I know that these are her daughters. I'm like, all right, I'm in there, right? Because I got a pretty cool relationship with my instructor. So I told her, those are your daughters? She's like, yeah, those are my babies. We were supposed to have lunch today. I says, So my mind is turning, my wheels are turning, and I tell her, I says, well, hook me up. And she says, boy, what? She said, hook you up? I was like, yeah, hook me up. And she's like, you crazy? I was like, I may be, but I'm for real though. I'm serious, hook me up. So she walks off, she takes a little step. She turns around and she says, well, which one? I said, well, the oldest one, of course. And it was at that moment that I knew I was going to have my chance.
Now let me pause because I always tell him that I was by default because I'm the oldest. So he just so happened to say the oldest one. So my sister could have very well been sitting right here today because he didn't specify. He didn't say, that one in the red shirt was the prettiest. He didn't say that. He just said the oldest. So I'll hop out and let him continue. But if y'all feel what I'm saying, let me know because I feel like I'm kind of here by default.
She's not here by default.
Yeah.
Okay, she's not here. She was hand selected by your boy. Okay, by your boy. But anyways, so I also feel in this world that, men, we don't really choose the women. The women choose who they want to be with in most cases. But
the whole truth.
But men, we influence that decision, by what we do, by what we say, by what we wear, by what we have, our intellect or that thereof, So, so that, okay, so going back to the story. I get a little sidetracked. So that was that, and I was like, bet, I'm going to have my shot. I'm going, what do I say? When? Well, months go on and months pass. And I'm like, dang, I'm almost out of barber college already. Like, I guess I ain't going to have my shot. So, I was a little down and whatnot. So one day, the school had implemented this policy that if you showed up late, you were going to go straight home. You didn't have no hours for the day. None of that. So lo and behold, I showed up late one day, right? And although we had a cool relationship, my instructor and I, like I say, she was really strict, really stern. With school, she did not play. So I showed up late. I'm downstairs unpacking all my stuff because I'm thinking I'm gonna just wiggle my way in there and nudge on my instructor and be like, "Hey, what's up, I'm Blake?" And you know how your mom is. So I get there, my stuff's there. Then I have another instructor. She comes down and she's like, "Hey, she wants to see you upstairs." And I was like, "Oh man, this is my instructor. This is her mom, my mother-in-law, right?" I'm like, "Golly, like I'm about to get sent home. I don't need this. I'm about to graduate, you know." But again, it's my fault. So I start putting all my stuff back in my bag because I already knew I was gonna get sent home. I go up the stairs. I go into the room, and class is in session. She's looking at me like a principal would, and she's like, I'm like, I go over there, I lean on the desk, I'm like, I already put all my stuff in my bag. I was like, I unpacked it, and she's like, "Good, you know you're late." I was like, "Yes, ma'am." I says, "I know I'm late." I says, "I know I'm not gonna get no hours." I says, "I know." She's like, "You gotta do better. You gotta do better." She says, "But that's not why you're up here." I was like, "What? Wait a minute, come again? What you talking about, you know?" And she says, "Well, you are late." She says, "I'm gonna let you stay today." I'm like, "Oh, cool, all right." And so she says, "Today is your day." And I was like, "Yeah, well, thank you, Thank you for, I appreciate you for letting me stay. You're not sending me home. I get my hours. I'm getting ready to graduate. I really appreciate that. I had no idea."
Yeah.
She was talking about, today I was going to meet this beautiful face, But she said, "Today is your day." And I was like, "Okay, She's like, "You don't know what I'm talking about, do you?" I was like, "I thought I did, but I guess not. Apparently I don't, right?" She's like, "Okay, well, just know today is your day. Go back downstairs, unpack your stuff, get ready for the clients." I was like, "Okay, bet." So I went downstairs, and all day it had been resonating in my mind, like, what is she talking about? Like, today is my day. Like, what is she talking about? I had no idea. And we were going to have a potluck that day. And was it that day that we were going to have a potluck, or you were just coming up there to have lunch?
No, I was just coming up there to have lunch.
Yeah, she was just going to come up and have lunch again. So I'm like, man, I still don't know what she's talking about. Well, then finally it clicked. It clicked just like a light bulb. I'm like, oh man, like, dang, today is the day. Like, I'm gonna meet her daughter, man. What? Like, I needed a haircut, just like I needed one this morning. I had to cut my hair this morning because I couldn't let you see your boy without a haircut. But so I'm like, dang, I need a haircut. I need to hurry up and get a haircut. Well, we had this thing that was also a policy in place that student service day was only on Friday. Well, it wasn't a Friday, but I needed my haircut, right? I could have cut it myself, but I needed to make sure I was on point. First impressions are everlasting. Don't forget that. You can only make a first impression one time, okay? So you want to put your best foot forward, right? As did I. So I went and talked to my boy. I'm like, "Yo, can you cut me up?" He's like, "You gonna get me in trouble. You gonna get in trouble. It's not Friday. It's not student service day." I was like, "Man, I'm gonna go talk to the head instructor," which was not my mother-in-law. She was the owner of the school. I was like, "And see what she can do. See if she'll let me slide." So I went and talked to her, right? And we had a pretty cool relationship too. And she did let me slide, but I had to pay, right? But it's only like $5 because it's a barber college. So I'm like, "Bet I got $5. I need this. I need this haircut." Right? This is like life changing here. So I could potentially meet a soulmate or somebody I could spend the rest of my life with. I don't know, So I go and I pay my $5. I sit in the chair. He's like, "We good?" I'm like, "We good." He's like, "Man, why you need this haircut? What you got going on?" I says, "Man, you remember I told you that the instructor lady's daughters came in?" He's like, yeah. You said they were pretty, they were fine, and da-da-da. I said, "Yeah, man." She's like, well, I said, "She told me today is the day. Today is the day, bro." You know how fellas can be, especially in the barber college, it's the same thing. He's like, "What? Yo, today's the day for my boy, man. He's gonna meet so-and-so. The whole barber college and that student side was the senior side was, erupting and fellas just cracking and whatnot. And I'm like, "Yeah, man. So I need you to put me in the game. Put me in the game, man. Get me right, please. Get me right. Get me tight, man." I said, "I need this." He's like, "I got you. Don't worry about it." So we talking and whatnot. And so this was later on that day, right? I mean, when I'm getting my haircut, time had passed, and Anika had actually came up to the school while I was getting my haircut, and she parked her car in the senior section. We could see it through the door, right? Well, then after that, they had went to lunch, and I'm over there. I had already got my hair cut. I'm still sitting on the senior side, right? Because I didn't want to miss my opportunity, because on the senior side, I could see her car. I was like, okay, look, I'm not going to let her leave without me saying something to her. So they all, like, what's up, man? When you gonna talk to her? You need to go holler at her. I said, no, man. I told my instructor, I said, all you have to do is introduce me. Introduce me, please. I said, and I'll take over the rest. So, again, she's like, yeah, you crazy, whatever. She's like, but okay, I'll introduce you.
So let me pause. Because meanwhile, in my world, you all, so he knows, he has seen me.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I've never seen him. I have no idea who he is. But what I do know is, so my mom had mentioned him kind of just in passing in conversation, like months back. And she said, it's this young student at the school named Gavino. He's really handsome. And that was that. Now, I have to give you a disclaimer. And I don't know if you all have this same... My mom's taste in men. Mom, when you see this, I apologize. I'm stepdad. I don't mean you. But her taste in men is not always, it's not the same. Let's just put it like that. Some of the men she says
is not her
handsome.
taste of men. That's all.
I don't think it's anybody's taste. Some men she says is handsome is not quite handsome to me. So when she says that he's handsome, I'm thinking, oh, okay. And I think nothing else of it. Well, then this day that Gavino's talking in his world while he's getting his haircut and all this other stuff.
She saw a shining star in me, though.
Meanwhile, in my world, my mom calls me up. I'm in college, so I just so happen to be home. I'm supposed to go up there to have lunch with her, but she tells me, "Hey, I'm going to introduce you to the young man Gavino that I told you about." And I'm like, "Oh, mom." I was like, and then so the day of,
Gavino.
yes, the day of,
what's that?
I say, "Okay, mom." I was like, "Man, mom, I don't have no clean clothes. I'm not gonna come." She was like, "Nikki," which is my nickname. She says, "You can put on anything. You have to come up here." I'm like, "Okay, mom, I don't have no clean underwear." And so she said, "Listen, just get some underwear and turn them inside out." And she said that. I said, "You know what? I'm going to get up and go." Because she feels very strong about whoever it is she is introducing me to.
Oh, man.
So like I say, I get there. I have no idea who he is. Me and my mom.
I didn't know she had on dirty drawers, though.
I was just telling my mom that because I didn't want to go. I actually had on clean clothes and I had on clean drawers. So I go and I have lunch with my mom, and we go and we sit and we talk. Like I said, I'm not thinking anything of it.
And while she's at lunch, I'm in the senior section looking like a little puppy through the window, like, she gonna ever come back?
So we get back, and my mom, one of the cool things about going up to the barber college is you could get some free services because you're the barber instructor's kid. And so my mom had one of the young ladies practice giving me a facial.
Yeah.
So she's giving me the facial, and the way that is stationed is her chair is sitting like right in front. Now, maybe about 5 steps over this way, it's this young man that's sitting in this chair. He's not sitting, he's cutting in this chair. And so I'm sitting there and I'm getting my facial, and I don't recognize this young man. I see this young man, I beeline, and I think, whew, he is handsome. Now, your boy. I had no idea. One thing, I'm sitting there, and Gavino is Hispanic, and I'm black. For those of y'all who hadn't quite realized when we said we're in an interracial relationship, he is Hispanic, and I am black. When he was sitting there, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, man, that man is handsome, like just a fruit snack, just sitting here. And I'm getting my facial, and they don't cover my eyes. I didn't get cucumbers, student service. I didn't get any cucumbers. I just got something on my face, but I can still see. But I'm sitting in the chair, and I'm thinking, I would never go say anything to him. I wouldn't, and I'm just gonna sit here and stare at him because he probably doesn't even like black girls. So I don't know if any of my women out there have ever had that same thought, have ever had that same experience where you kind of shoot yourself down before you ever even give yourself a shot. So that's what I thought. I'm thinking he's Hispanic, I'm black.
Not to cut you off, but to piggyback that, I mean, it's the same thing for Hispanic men, women, whether it be Vietnamese, Chinese, anything interracial. It's a lot of times we often wonder, like Anika, do they date out of their race? And one thing is, you would never know unless you ask. You know, unless you approach the situation, you'll never know. But I do know that if you don't at least try, you could possibly be missing out on a blessing just because of our cultural upbringings that we're supposed to date within our race. You know, so we'll go ahead.
So the facial finishes up about 15 minutes. So about 15 minutes, I get to give me an eye full of this handsome, so handsome young man. So I finish up and my mom says, hey, okay, go ahead and go wait outside. I'm going to tell Gavino to come outside. So that's what I do. I get up and I go outside, and it seemed like an eternity, but I think it was probably only about 5 minutes. But I go and I'm standing in the front of the school out there by my car.
Where she had parked in the senior section, right? So I'm like, dang, man, she's leaving, man. What happened? I thought we were, I'm about to miss my opportunity, got my blessing, right? So I'm sitting there with my boys, and they're dogging on me too. They're like, yeah, CSA, you ain't gonna have your shot today. You ain't gonna have your shot. Man, she leaving. What you gonna do? I said, I ain't gonna do nothing, man. I ain't gonna do nothing, because I still had that in my mind that I asked her mother to introduce me, right? So I wanted to keep that in respect. So here comes her mom. She comes walking up to the senior doors, which you couldn't open, and she knocks on the door, right? So everybody's attention goes to the door, like, oh, and then she goes like this. She's like, come outside. I'm like, well, wish me luck, guys. So everybody's like, oh. But yeah, so I mean that's pretty much how we met, and we went outside. We talked to each other.
Now let me tell y'all something. I felt like Christmas Day. I don't even remember. I think this was like in May. It was nowhere near Christmas.
It's hot.
But I'm standing outside, and I just told you all that I stared at somebody. I stared down this young Hispanic man for 15 minutes. And I'm waiting for Gavino, whoever this is, to come outside. And guess who rounds that corner? That young man that I stared at for 15 minutes.
Yeah, boy.
I think I have not smiled that big since. I had from ear to ear, and I thought, oh my gosh, you have got to be kidding me. The handsome Hispanic man, ding, 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 he does like black women.
I do.
And so the rest is history. We have been together. That was 15 years ago, 16 years ago. That was 16 years ago. We've been together for 16 years, and we will be married for 13 years next month. So the rest is history. Now, I have a question for you.
She got me right out of high school.
Because when you talk about interracial relationships, so that's kind of how we met. Was that your first interracial relationship? Had you been with somebody else? So obviously you like black women because you saw me and I am black. Was I the first one that you had ever dated or talked to?
Okay, so let me clarify some things.
Oh, gosh.
I don't like black women. I love black women. Okay, I love black women. All right, so let's get that understood. But growing up, I just loved women. Whether it be white, black, Chinese, Hispanic, whatever, it didn't matter to me. And I think my upbringing was definitely not that. It was like everyone, but you got to stay within your race. Okay, so I liked everyone, but I always pushed the boundary. I always pushed the boundary, and I always went against the grain. Okay, so barber talk, going against the grain, is one of the easiest things to do because you go against the grain and it cuts the hair the shortest it possibly can. So a lot of times it can also be difficult, but going with the grain is an easier path. So I chose to go against the grain a lot of time in my life. So to answer your question, no. Where I went to school, where I went to high school, where I grew up it was like a melting pot. So I saw blacks with whites, whites with Hispanics, Asians with blacks. I saw it all. So, and I was always a little different. I was on the step team in high school, I was the only, Latin brother on the step team, But no, it was not my first time dating outside my race, but it was my first time having a real interracial relationship outside of school, a serious one.
So for me, it was my first time altogether. In middle school, there was this young man that had approached me and asked me for my phone number. I won't say his name, but he had a very, 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 very thick accent. Like I could barely. He was very cool, but I could barely understand him. And so he called and expressed his interest, but I'm thinking, okay, we're going to stay friends because I don't know how this is supposed to work. So that was in middle school. And then in high school, there were a couple Hispanic guys. One of them was a playboy, so I wasn't even trying to go down that route. And then the other one, we were friends. And so I didn't want to cross that boundary. So I had never dated outside of my race before Gavino. Was there anything with dating? So then this was my first time, and then with Gavino, this is first serious relationship. Was there anything that you had to get used to, you think, that was different? You know, any cultural, anything?
The shower caps. The straight up shower caps. Now come on in here. I want you to get out of the frame here. I want people to see your face. The shower caps. I mean, you know, I understand being that I'm a barber. You know, I understand the whole, you know, African American.
We don't get our hair
wet, right?
Unless it's time to wash it.
So I understand all that. But, you know, it just, understanding it and seeing it and living with it, it was different, you know. It was different. It wasn't really like a culture shock or nothing like that. It was just definitely different. It was something that I had to get used to. And I've gotten used to it. So, I mean, you know, I'm going to spare my wife, but I've gotten used to it, you know. The shower caps, it's cool. It's all good, you know what I'm saying? It's not a big thing.
Shower
because
caps.
when she comes to the bed, it's she don't have nothing on her hair, you know, nothing. She don't sleep with a bonnet. She don't sleep with nothing, you know, and it's cool. You know, I'm cool with it.
What about, like, foods? Is there anything that maybe you had eaten or never had eaten until we met?
Yes. Chitlins. Never had chitlins before. Now here's the funny thing is that, you know, the Hispanic culture, we have menudo, right? So if I'm not mistaken, it's made of the same part of the cow, you know.
At least it smells like it.
At least it smells like it, you know. But I'll tell you one thing, I'll never eat chitlins again. It is not good to me. Now, I'm not being disrespectful to y'all and y'all's culture, right? Because it's our culture. We married into this, and it's our culture. We share the same culture now. We created our own. And but I'll never eat chitlins. So, what about you?
So, funny thing is, menudo, they're similar. Now, I used to eat chitlins a lot more when I was younger, and I don't know what happened. I guess your taste buds change as you get older. I don't like them as much. I don't think I've eaten them in a while. But menudo, you know, it was their equivalent to chitlins. And so the first time I ever ate menudo,
but it's prepared. It's
prepared different. Yes, it's like a soup. But the first time
really
I ever ate menudo, I thought it was the most disgusting thing in the entire universe. And they were eating it like it was the best thing ever.
It's the bomb.
I was like, no. But I don't know what happened. I think I tried it a couple more times. And now, truth be told, it's my favorite food. His dad makes it the best. And if his dad ever wants me to come over, all he has to say is, "Ding, hey, we got some menudo." And before he even hangs up the phone, I'm knocking at the door. So
it could be a Monday. We could be over there with some menudo.
So it grew on me. How about, had there ever been a time where being in an interracial relationship put you in an uncomfortable position? Whether it
most
be
definitely.
in your family or
Most
whether it be out in the community?
Of course. Of course.
So share with us.
You know, we're living in a difficult time now. It's like we're going backwards in time. But yes, you know, I can remember a time where we were going to the movies here where we live, and we were walking up to the movies, you know, hand in hand. And like I say, I was exposed to a lot of interracial stuff. But because I am, doesn't mean that everyone is. And everyone's upbringing is different. So everybody is going to perceive interracial relationship differently. Right? So we're walking up to the movies to go get our tickets and whatnot, and we see these 3 or 4 Hispanic girls, you know, we're hand in hand, and, you know, all I can hear out of my ear is like, no, he didn't. Like, what?
I don't think I heard that.
You know, what is he doing? You know, and we walk in like, why? You know, and we just keep walking though. You know, I didn't make a confrontation of it. It wasn't, I heard it, but it didn't bother me. Because I had who I wanted on my side. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, when you're doing something that's uncomfortable to others, it's always going to be uncomfortable to those others. So as long as you're happy and comfortable with what you're doing, you got to just keep that in mind and play off of that and keep it moving, you know?
Yeah, we had a similar incident where there was one time we went to Walmart, and this Walmart wasn't necessarily, because where we live, like Gavino said, is more of a melting pot, and you see interracial relationship, like we don't stand out.
We're not unique.
Yeah, but in this particular part of town, that's not the case. It was more predominantly people that look like me, and which is cool. But we were inside of a Walmart, and we were walking hand in hand again, not paying any attention. But most of the time, Gavino's the one that's more perceptive. I am walking, and I'm like la 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 la, so I'm not ever really paying attention. But I don't even know how this particular person caught my eye. But it was two girls, and there were two African American girls that were walking. So Gavino and I, they're coming this way, so we're going this way, they're coming this way. And we walked by. Now Gavino, he's always doing stuff to his hair. He's a barber, so he's always doing stuff to his hair. This particular time, he had actually had shaved his head, so he didn't have any hair on his head.
No, I thought I had a mohawk.
Oh, I don't know. I think
if I didn't have a bald head, I had a mohawk, but it wasn't like no cool mohawk. It was like a straight up old school mohawk, like bald on the side. Maybe it wasn't blended like a new era mohawk. It was a mohawk.
So because I didn't sleep many nights, we'll go with his side. So he had a mohawk. But so when we walked past the young ladies, I think what may have caught my attention is because she looked like she was disgusted. And I think that's the first time I had ever seen that, where somebody looked at you like, and I'm like, what happened? You know, what's on my face? And I heard her say when she passed, she was like, I hate to see black people with white people. And I thought,
I mean, I ain't white. But
I'm like, first of all, and I thought, well, that's what the look was for, and it kind of took me aback a second, and I think Gavino heard it too, but I think, I didn't even let it bother me, because like Gavino said, one thing, when we got together, this is my first time in an interracial relationship, it's his first time in a serious relationship. I remember telling him that if it's going to be difficult, it's okay as long as we're going to be in it together. So if this is what you want, and we're going to be in this ring together, then I'll put up the fight regardless. But if we're going to be in it together, then I'll take the heat that comes with it, because it's worth it. And so a lot of times you don't quite, let that stuff bother you. Now that was years and years ago. I don't think we've had anything recent. We've been together, and where we live, we are out about all the time. So you see us, you see our kids, and so it's kind of like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. So it's not so much that we stand out anymore.
But I will have to say, one of the most difficult things about our relationship was having to deal with my parents. My parents, and me not knowing how my in-laws were taking it as well, because they didn't really talk about it. They were cool with it from the eye, but they really never talked about it. And I just had a little bit of a pushback from my folks. And it's mainly, again, it's because of their upbringing. Back when they went to school, it wasn't how we went to school. It was a lot more segregated. Like, my parents went to different schools, and my dad told me he can remember times of being bused to schools where it was predominantly white. So it was just segregation, and it was you're taught you stick with your people. And don't get me wrong, I stick with my people too. Because I'm married to an African American woman does not mean that I don't ride with my people, and it does not mean that she does not ride with her people. We push that rhetoric hard, especially because we have our children. We have children that are, interracial, so they're mixed kids, right? And but I will also have to say that through the years, and now, it was just tough initially, having to break that ice, break that barrier, because like I said, it was their upbringing. It was what they knew, But now us new era folks, new generations, we know different things. We see different different light. So now it's nothing.
Hey, that's Anika. And the funny thing is that it used to be
it's pretty much like that everywhere we go.
Yeah, is that I was always always the only black person at any family function that he had, and the same with him. Any family function that we had, he's the only Hispanic person, only black person, and I don't ever think that ever made me uncomfortable. And it just gets to a point now where you've been together for so long that when you walk in, oh, that's G and Anika, so you know who we are. And I don't know if because of Gavino, but some of those barriers have kind of been broken down, because I'm not always the only black person at family functions. We have some of his younger cousins are dating. outside of their race. And so it's not that I'm the only one, which it wouldn't matter anyway anymore, but I'm not the only one. With some of the race stuff, and just a quick topic, if some of the race stuff, because now out in the community, race comes up, do you ever find it difficult, even in today's age, being into interracial relationship with just some of the stuff that in recent news comes up about race? Does it ever put you in an awkward position?
No, absolutely not. Back then I was a little bit more impressionable. Now I'm definitely thinking on my own. I've grown into my own mentality. So no, absolutely not. But what does make things difficult is our children. Because I'm grown and I can care less what somebody says about me or what they may say to my wife. But now I'm having to deal with it in retrospect is with our children. I say my all the time, sorry, but they're our kids. They belong to both of us. But it's our children, and thankfully, again, where we live, they see the diversity too. So they really haven't had an issue with that per se just yet. And when that arises, hopefully it never does. But I will be mistaken to think that it would never happen. But when it does, I'll be ready to rise to the occasion for my children, as well as Anika will be, to handle it appropriately.
So before we leave our Clair Em family, any tips that you have, and anybody may be thinking about dating outside of their race, or maybe somebody about to marry outside of their race, what would you impart them with?
Yes, I do. I have several. Several tips, but we've actually probably exceeded the time allowed that we were told to do this video. So I hope we don't get chopped up and screwed. It's a Southern thing and then put back together. But yes, I have several. One of the biggest things is that just step out on faith. Step out on faith, because ultimately it's your life. It is your life. Yes, you may have to endure things, but I always say, I have a saying that I created myself. It's a simple one, is that anything in your life worth having is definitely worth the fight. So whether it be a person or car or home, whatever, we're talking about interracial marriage, so it's definitely going to be a person next to your side. As long as that person treats you with respect, respects you, respects themselves, respects your situation, respects your family, just take a leap of faith. You have to take a leap of faith, because again, like I stated in the video, you never know. You could be missing out on a blessing. You could be missing out on, the best person of your life, just for the simple fact that, they're black, or they're Mexican, or they're white. I ain't doing that. I don't want to hear my family. Do what's gonna make you happy. Do with what you can stand and what you're able to live with, because ultimately you lay your head next to this person. So, but like I said, I got plenty of tips. We'll just leave you guys with that.
Leave it at that. I piggyback that. Gavino said it best. I can't even restate it. If he had not been able to approach me because I was a different race, we may not have been sitting here today, because I wouldn't have approached him. And so just like he's saying, I would have missed out on my blessing. 2 beautiful children 16 years later, I would have missed out on that only because I shot myself down before I ever even had given myself a shot. And so if there's somebody that you are interested in, no matter what color he may be, because you can be rejected by people of your own race.
Or she.
You can be rejected. It doesn't... I wouldn't let race be the only thing that stops you. If that's the only thing, but everything else you're looking at him or her and saying, man,
it's perfect,
and that's the only thing.
Well, then there's the wrong color of the color spectrum.
And that's by whose definition. So don't let that be the only thing that stops you. So if you can't leave you with anything else, is you take that step, because you never know where that step will land you.
That's right.
So thank you all. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see y'all next time.
If you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to Clair Em Motivators, and I have more tips. Like I say, I could talk for days. So, but yes, thank you all. Thank you for your time. I hope we've enlightened you guys. If anything, I hope we made you guys laugh. So, thank you all for y'all's time.